What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 22 of the Against the Current podcast. I'm Rudy Garcia. Today we want to talk about a concept that is very much in need in this generation. The concept of being future-minded, being willing to sacrifice in the present so that your future is better. Or we're going to speak against instant gratification. I know this is something I've personally struggled with in my life, and I know many of you have as well. What's going on, guys? Let's talk about our sponsor, Regenerate Coffee. They have a new coffee available. It has different flavor notes. It's from a different farm in Colombia. To me personally, it kind of gives me the sense of like tobacco and smoke. But either way, it tastes fantastic. You can use code ATCPOD10 to order your bag of the best coffee in South Florida. Hands down, and help support a discipleship ministry that's creating lifelong disciples for Christ, and you'll help support us here at Against the Current podcast as well. Remember, ATCPOD10 to get 10% off and support us here on the show. Grab Forged by Fire. It's the first book in the Through the Flames trilogy. Listen, if you love books like Chronicles of Narnia or Lord of the Rings, you're going to love Forged by Fire. Inspired by the quote, "All it takes for evil to win is for good men to do nothing." Forged by Fire tells the story of Arthur as he saves his family from the forces of evil. Order your copy today. And lastly, check out our merch store. We have shirts, hats, sweaters, even a coffee mug. So we have the journal over there as well. So check out the merch shop and rep ATC Pod wherever you go. The link for all three of these is in the description below. Enjoy the episode. So we're going to talk today about being future-minded and what that means. It's a concept of living today with the future in mind. So what does it mean to be future-minded? It means to reject the instant gratification. So living this lifestyle of this thing that I have present in front of me to do is going to gratify me now without taking into consideration how it's going to affect your future. So instead of thinking that way, what I'm saying is we should be thinking, I'm not going to spend money on this now because I'm saving to buy this other thing, or I'm saving for this other purpose that is better in the future. Being future-minded is putting more value in the future than in the present. We make a lot of mistakes when we value the present more than the future. For example, how many times have you found yourself at the crossroads of doing something important that you know you need to do? But instead of thinking, hey, if I do this now, if I sacrifice now and do this thing I need to do in the future, this is going to be beneficial for me in the future. Instead of thinking that way, we think, you know what, I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to play video games. I'm going to watch TV. I'm going to go hang out with friends. You're going to do what you want to do that's going to make you feel good then. And then at some point, you're either going to suffer the loss of not doing the thing that you knew you needed to do, or you're going to experience having to stop what you're doing that was gratifying you, getting ripped away from that to go do what you know you needed to do. Or you could have sacrificed, suffered in the moment, in the present, to then enjoy the future. Because you do it, you get it done now, and then you could have enjoyed yourself. This is very simple example. You could, if you go to school, you could get home on Friday, do your homework that you got assigned on Friday, and then you have Saturday and Sunday to enjoy your weekend. Or you can get home on Friday, forget about homework, let it get into Saturday, do no homework, and then Sunday night, the homework that's due, you have to do it in a rush. And that's a very simple example, but it's true when it comes to life. You can do something now that'll be more beneficial for you in the future. It seems simple because it is simple. We all experience that. We create budgets in a dream to own a home and to get out of debt, to be financially stable, but then a new thing comes out. A new reason to spend money comes up, and we just have to buy it. When a vacation opportunity arises, we just have to take it because, I've worked hard and I've earned it. So let's just go do it. You're driving. This happens to me. This one does happen to me a lot. I don't know if it happens to anybody else or anybody else experiences this, but I know I have food at home. I know I did groceries. I know if I just wait 30 minutes, 40 minutes, get home, I can make myself a sandwich, cook food, whatever. I have food at home. But guess what? That food in the gas station, those Jack Links, whatever, or the Slim Jim, or the Monster, or the soda, or the stop at McDonald's real quick, that seems more enticing. But guess what? You just spend money on groceries, plus you're spending money on. Just wait a second, get home, make sacrifices in the present that will help you truly live the life you want in the future. I know. Listen, me and my family right now, we're going through a period where we're in debt and we're trying to get out of debt. 2 years, 18 months, 2 years seems daunting to be like, hey, I'm not eating out at McDonald's for 2 years. Hey, I'm not going on these big, nice vacations for 2 years. Hey, I'm not buying the next great, I'm not spending money in these certain ways for the next 2 years. But what's 2 years compared to 30, to 40, to 10, where you can wholeheartedly be completely out of debt in 18 to 24 months if you sacrifice for 2 years, send all your extra money to paying and getting yourself out of debt. When 2 years go by, you look at yourself in a different position as opposed to living 30 years with the mentality of, I'm just going to do what I like now, not suffer, because either way, what does it matter? Dave Ramsey, some people, you either love or hate Dave Ramsey. There is no in between. He says, there's this quote that I love of his. It says, if you will live like no one else now, later you can live and give like no one else. If you're willing to do the things no one else is willing to do now, you can do the things no one else can do in the future. If you save money like no one else, if you don't go on expensive trips like no one else, if you don't buy things you don't need like no one else, now, in the very short future, you can be generous like no one else. You can take your family on vacations like no one else. You can buy a house like no one else. You can live stress-free like no one else. The biggest determining factor in stress, I believe, in our modern day is financial illiteracy. Just not taking charge and controlling our finances. It's the biggest reason me and my wife were getting into fights this past year. It wasn't because I don't take the trash out enough, because I do. It wasn't because I don't spend time with them enough, because I do. It was because there was a lack of financial literacy in the household. So lack of financial literacy led to struggles financially, which led to fights all around. If you value the future more than the present, you will sacrifice in the present to enjoy the future. Okay, so that's great. That's the idea. That's the concept of being future-minded. What does the Bible say about being future-minded? Because that's, we're Christian here, so that's really what we're guiding our life on. So there are multiple verses in the Bible that teach on being future-minded, this concept. But I'm going to pick two. One in Proverbs and one in Genesis. So let's go to Proverbs first. Proverbs chapter 6, verses 6 to 11. Let's go ahead and get there. I'm looking for it along with you. Proverbs chapter 6, verses 6 to 11. Okay, here we go. Go to the ant, O sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise. Without having any chief, officer or ruler, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest. How long will you lie there, O sluggard? When will you arise from your sleep? Sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a robber, and want like an armed man. In this example, ants, we're looking here, ants are future-minded. Why? She prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest. She's preparing so that during the time there is no harvest, during the winter, she has when she can't work. She's thinking about the future. It also brings up something that you need. You need this to be future-minded, and you need to work this muscle out. It's called discipline. Proverbs tells us to consider the ant. When there's work to be done, fruit to be harvested, the ant gathers, works hard and diligently. And if you notice, there's no boss telling her to do it. There's no chief telling her to do it. She does it. Because it knows that there will come a time where there is no harvest, and the harvest of today will provide for the scarcity of the future. We get to see a very strong truth of the world, a very real truth of this world. You will not always be in a time of harvesting. It's not always going to be time to gather. You're not always going to be in a place where you're successful and money's coming in. Sometimes you will go through periods of time in your life where there will be lack. You're going to lose your job. You're going to get injured and not be able to work for a period of time. The company you're working for is going to close down, or they need to do some layoffs. There will be points in your life. As humans, we live too many years for all of them to be perfect and always having something coming in. You need to prepare for when you're going through lack. How well you prepared and saved when there was abundance will determine how much you suffer when there is scarcity. Let's look at Genesis. It's the perfect example of this. Genesis chapter 41, verses 25 through 36. I don't want to really read the whole thing, it's long, but let me give you some backstory. Joseph is a Hebrew person that through evil of man ended up becoming a slave in Egypt. Through evil of man again, he ended up in prison. The king, the Pharaoh, had two dreams detailing, long story short, detailing 7 years of prosperity, really, really amazing prosperity, and 7 years of really severe drought and lack and poverty. None of the court wizards of Egypt were able to detail it. Joseph was called up, and he gave the interpretation of the dream. And then he gave his solution. What was his solution? Listen, during the 7 years that we're going to be super, super prosperous, you ration everything. You save, you budget, you put things away, right? Because we know there's going to be 7 years of severe lack. So instead of enjoying fully the 7 years of prosperity, doing whatever you wanted, spending however much you wanted, throwing all the parties you wanted, you know that 7 years of lack are coming. How dumb do you have to be to not prepare for scarcity and for hardships when you know it's coming? So his plan was for the 7 years that there was going to be a lot of prosperity, they organized, they saved, they budgeted. They did that so well for 7 years that the 7 years that the entire region was under a drought and during lack and needed, they didn't just have enough to survive the 7 years. They had enough to be generous and help the people in the region, coming to them, asking, we don't have enough, we don't have food, we don't have. They had so much that while the entire region was going through a drought, they were able to help. They were able to help and be there for people. And being wise in this way when we really look at the story and you keep following the story of Joseph, being wise in this way is what allowed Joseph's family to come to him for help in their scarcity, leading to God's will for forgiveness. When you're going through a time of plenty, we tend to live as if this time is never going to end. For a really long time, me and my wife both had a job, and it was fine. For the past 2 years, we've been living with a family member that graciously has allowed us to live there rent-free. And we completely failed in this concept of being future-minded and preparing for the future. We completely failed. We didn't act and save during our time of plenty, during our time of having. So even though we were living completely rent-free, we just spent money because we had it. We got things, we got food, and we bought things, and we spent money unwisely. 9 months ago, I got laid off from the job that I had, and I found myself with nothing, with an okay savings account, nowhere near the size that it should be, and a couple credit cards. I spent 5 months looking for work, trying to get licenses, failing on that too. Completely maxed out our credit, depleted our savings account, and completely maxed out our credit cards. We completely failed to live during our time of plenty with the time of scarcity in mind. Because nowadays you don't get a dream, a prophetic dream, God telling you, hey, in the next 7 years you're going to suffer. But there is going to come a time, 7, 3, 10, 25, there's going to come a time in your life where you're not going to have plenty. You're going to be in a moment of scarcity. And what you earned and how you saved in your time of plenty will determine how you suffer in your time of lack. So for 2 years, we lived with no care in the world. 9 months ago, I lost my job, maxed out all my credit cards, complete. Mind you, that were paid off. These are credit cards that were paid off down to zero, debt-free, ran them all up again. Savings account, emergency fund savings account, gone. I found a job 3 months ago, and now we're in a place where we have to crawl back from a hole that we didn't need to be in. Paying off thousands of dollars in credit card debt and paying family debt off, and relationships strained from that period of lack, and from the period of unpreparedness. If I would have prepared before I lost my job, I wouldn't be in the debt and the hole I'm in now. I wouldn't have suffered the fights and the strain in my marriage that I did. And I wouldn't have experienced the depression that I experienced. The reality is that there will always be a swing of plenty and of scarcity. And your preparation during the time of plenty, again, will decide how much you suffer during the time of scarcity. Don't be lazy. There will come a time in life where we can rest. Take your Sabbath day or your rest day during the week. But while you have the strength of your youth, work, fight, save, handle your money properly. There will come a time where you won't have the strength to work. Because sometimes it isn't that you lost a job. Sometimes it's old age. Sometimes it's retirement. And you don't have the strength to work anymore. Old age, sickness, injury. But there will be moments in life where you won't be able to work, to harvest. How you manage to save money and prepare for the future will dictate how much you suffer in moments of scarcity. Don't be unwise. Be like the ant. When you're given the blessing from God to be able to harvest, manage the harvest well so that you can have when there's nothing to harvest. Thank you guys. Remember, use ATCPOD, use code ATCPOD10 to get 10% off the best coffee in South Florida. Grab your copy of Forged by Fire and check out the merch store, all in the link below. Thank you all for listening. Hope this was encouraging. Love you all, and hope to see you in the next one. Peace out. Love you guys.